what Muhammad recites is from Allah and I believe in it. But if I do that, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Muslim. So I don't know if Dave wants to add something, and then you can continue from there. Do you want to add something?
Yes, I'd just like to compare Manu's method with the method that we find in the Quran itself. Manu, we've been over this again and again. The method that you use is you go through the Quran, you find whatever verses you like best, and you use those to reinterpret, radically reinterpret even clear verses that call Muslims to fight. So if you take Surah 929 and 930, this is the clearest passage in the Quran as far as I'm concerned. Fight those who do not believe. What is unclear there? You go to the next verse, what does this mean? Because it says from among the people of the book. You say, wait a minute, why? I thought people of the book were okay. What do you mean fight the people of the book? Well, the next verse tells you, we say that Jesus is the Son of God, and it calls for Allah himself to fight against us as the Muslims go out and fight us. So what do we have here? You radically reinterpret verses like that by appealing to earlier, more favorable verses. Is this the method of the Quran? Do you pick the nicest verses and use those to reinterpret very clear verses which call you to fight unbelievers? That's not the method of the Quran. The method of the Quran is given in the Quran itself, Surah 16, 101. That's where you go. You go to Surah 2, 106. These are the verses that you go to, and when you go to these passages, what do you find? You find that according to the Quran, the method handed down in the Quran is, whatever passage comes later, that's the passage you go with. So the only question, if you want to quote a passage that sounds peaceful to you and speaks favorably, again, as Sam pointed out, I am not a believer according to the Quran, and I would challenge you, show me who died in the Fort Hood massacre who would qualify as a believer according to the Quran and therefore should not have been killed. Should not have been intentionally killed, at least. So show us who on the list of people who were killed in the Fort Hood massacre were believers according to the Quran. Not according to you, according to the Quran. And if you can't, then you have to recognize that these were people who are about to go fight in Muslim countries, and that the Quran does command you to fight such people. And not only that, it commands Muslims to fight unbelievers in general until they submit to Islam, which these people hadn't. So what we find, according to the Quran, is the doctrine of abrogation. You look to see what verse comes later. If you find some peaceful verse, and there's another verse that says, fight the unbelievers or slay them wherever you find them, all you have to do as a Muslim is say, let's look at history and see which verse came last. Whichever verse came last, that's what I'm commanded to do now. And when we do this, we find that Surah 9 was one of the last two surahs revealed. The earlier ayahs, the earlier verses, the earlier surahs, which have commanded when Muslims were in a position of weakness and were not allowed to fight, which were revealed then, these do not apply anymore. They don't apply. So what I find is that you're calling in using a very westernized and very unorthodox method of interpretation. I don't know how you can say that 80% of Muslims would agree with you. 80% of Muslims, some of those would have to fall into the Sunni and Shia camps, and Sunnis and Shias both agree you go to the Hadith. They both agree that you go to historical sources. They both agree in the doctrine of abrogation. So they would all agree that you should look to see which verse was revealed later and not simply reinterpret verses that you don't like. And when you follow this method, again, the method that we find in the Quran, you find that Muhammad's final marching orders are fight everyone who doesn't believe. And if you are to fight everyone who doesn't believe, you're never to side with the enemy against Muslims. You are to support Islam rather than an infidel army. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to fight the unbelievers. What was the Fort Hood shooting? It was an instance of a Muslim fighting unbelievers. How can you as a Muslim say that this was wrong?
Manu, we don't want to overwhelm you and bombard you because we want you to respond. But let me just read that what he said, I said, is backed up by the consensus of Islamic scholars of the past who were writing at a time in which Islam was dominant, didn't have to sugarcoat the message of the Quran. Ibn Juzay, a renowned Muslim expositor, Ibn Juzay, this is what he says concerning chapter 9, verse 29, which Dave just mentioned. Dave just said the reason why you're supposed to fight them is because of their belief, not because they were hostile towards you. Now, is Dave just coming up with this on his own? Well, let's see what Ibn Juzay said concerning the meaning of the passage. Fight those of the people who do not have iman, belief in Allah and the last day. And then he says, a command to fight the people of the book and denying their belief in Allah. In other words, they're not believers in Allah. Because of the words of the Jews, Uzair is the son of Allah, and the words of the Christians, the Messiah is the son of Allah. Their belief in the last day is denied because their belief in it is incorrect. So from the Quranic perspective, because we believe the wrong things about Allah, all our beliefs are null and void. Therefore, we're disbelievers, and that's the reason why Muslims have to fight us. Again, we're quoting your sources. We're quoting the Quran, the Sunnah of Muhammad, Ibn Kathir, Ibn Juzay, As-Suyuti, you name it. We keep giving you the best Islam has to offer. And all we get is, well, you're not quoting it correctly, you're not quoting the context. Whereas we look at the context, and the context of the Quran, the historical context, and the Muslim sources, and all of them are on our side. It seems like we are going out of our way to tell you what Islam truly teaches. And it seems the Muslims don't want us to do that. Well, if you don't want us to do that, we can't rewrite your sources.
Okay, this is what we'll have to do. We have to take a break. Manu, are you still with us on air?
Oh, did they hang up on?
Okay, yeah.
Manu, please call back. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay, this is what we'll have to do. We'll have to take a break. We'll be right back, and then we'll continue taking your calls. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Before we take our next call, I just have a quick announcement to make. For those of you watching internationally and also are waiting on hold for a while, if for whatever reason that you don't get through to the show and have the opportunity to ask your question, you can also go to YouTube and ask your questions there if you type in Jesus or Muhammad, or what's your ministry called that they can check out?
Oh, I was actually thinking if people wanted to, since anyone can get a YouTube account who has a computer, if you upload a question onto YouTube and send us the link. So if you have some interesting question that you'd like us to cover, some topic you'd like us to cover, just put a camera in front of your face, or if you have a computer with a camera, ask a question, upload it onto YouTube, send us the link. We'll play the YouTube video of you asking the question, and then we'll go ahead and respond to any questions that really require answering. So if you're in India or China or something and you just can't afford to wait on the line, then that's another method.
Yes.
Let me just give the websites again.
Okay.
We haven't been giving our websites out enough. If you want further information and resources that will thoroughly equip you in presenting the gospel of Jesus Christ to Muslims, or if Muslims, you're listening and you want to find our argumentation more in depth and the research that we provide so that you can see for yourselves we're not misquoting, you can go to David Wood's blog. It's answeringmuslims.com. answeringmuslims.com. What makes his blog so great is that not only does he have short articles, he has video clips, and pretty much most, if not all, of his debates and the debates of some of our fellow apologists are posted there, which you can watch for free. He's debated Muslims on various topics, such as the satanic verses, is Islam a religion of peace, is Christianity a religion of peace, and on the Trinity and so on and so forth. And you can find even at least one or two of my debates, I think 2 debates there. And if you want to read articles, and some lengthy articles at that, if you're like me and you just sit home all day behind a computer and writing and eating pizza, then go to answering-islam.org. Answering-islam.org. David also has articles that he's contributed to that site. He has his own section there. If you go to individual authors, you'll see some great authors, some great writers by the grace of God writing some fantastic stuff. You'll find David Wood's own page and my page as well. Use these resources and pass it on to Muslims. And Muslims, we challenge you to go there and listen, hear, or read our arguments.